A Norwegian priest rows toward a village at the edge of the world. He's heard it's been invaded, that his people need rescuing. But when he lands, he finds no one. No Christians, no pagans. Only cattle and sheep gone wild, grazing among untouched houses. The beds are still there, the tools in their place, and not a single body. Where did hundreds of people go who one day simply ceased to exist? That's the question we've been unable to answer for 600 years. Because the most unsettling thing isn't that these people vanished once, it's that they vanished twice. And the second time was worse. Let's take it step by step. A continuous Viking presence in Greenland dates back to around the year 985, when, according to the medieval Icelandic sagas, Erik the Red arrived there leading a large fleet, after being temporarily banished from Iceland for killing 2 men in a neighborly dispute. A man with a bad temper and a legal problem looking for new land to start over. Of the 25 ships that set sail from Iceland, it's believed only 14 reached safely what would later be known as the Eastern Settlement. At first, there were between 400 and 500 colonists, and the colony never grew beyond 2,000 or 3,000 inhabitants. They founded 2 hubs. Soon they established 2 colonies, the Eastern Settlement, or Eystrabygd, and the Western Settlement, or Vestrabygd, with several small settlements between them. And here's the first thing that doesn't add up. Legend says they came looking for pasture. But modern science tells another story, because these men risked their lives in the North Atlantic for something far more valuable than grass. They came for ivory. Research by the universities of Cambridge, Oslo, and Trondheim has found that for hundreds of years, almost all the ivory that circulated in Europe came from walruses, hunted in seas accessible only through the Norse settlements of southwestern Greenland. Walrus ivory was a highly valued medieval commodity, used to carve luxury objects like ornate crucifixes or game pieces such as chess sets. The famous Lewis chessmen are made from walrus tusk. Think about it. These farmers at the end of the world were, in fact, the suppliers of the most coveted luxury item in medieval Europe. Churches, kings, bishops, they all wanted their ivory, and only they had it. For almost 400 years it worked. They built farms, churches, even a cathedral with its own bishop. They dressed like Europeans on the continent. They prayed like them. They were a thriving civilization nailed into the ice, and then it began to fall apart. First, in the north. Let's go back to that priest from the beginning. The Western settlement was mentioned for the last time by Ivar Bardason, a Norwegian cleric sent to Greenland in 1341 to serve as superintendent of the bishop's seat at Gardar, in the Eastern Settlement. In the mid-14th century, he heard that the Inuit had wiped out the Western settlement. Ivar led a party from the Eastern Settlement to drive them out, but when he reached the Western Settlement, he found something chilling. No Norse, no Inuit, only livestock running free. His original account was lost, but a translated version survives. In it he says there was no one, neither Christians nor pagans, only wild animals. For centuries, historians read this literally. The Inuit had massacred the colonists. End of story. The problem is that when the archaeologists arrived, the story stopped adding up. Because there's no massacre. The destruction mentioned isn't supported by archaeology, which found only abandonment. No sign whatsoever of any outside attack. The failure came from within. No one burned those farms, no one fought over them. The people simply ceased to be there. So what happened? The bones began to speak, and what they say is bleak. In the trash heaps from the colony's final century, researchers find far fewer cattle bones, but also evidence that the colonists were eating their dogs, a sign of desperation. They were eating their working animals, the last reserve. What you eat when there's nothing left. Why? Here enters the most famous suspect, the cold. When Erik the Red colonized Greenland at the end of the 10th century, it was as warm as today, if not a little warmer, but within a few centuries it turned drastically colder. That cooling has a name. This trend is sometimes known as the Little Ice Age, and several books and documentaries have pointed to the disappearance of Norse Greenland as the climate worsened. A world freezing beneath your feet, pastures that won't grow, livestock that won't survive the winter. It makes perfect sense. Except that, once again, it's not that simple. Because recent research has turned the easy explanation on its head. A new study argues it was a prolonged drought, not low temperatures, that drove the Norse colonists out of the region. Not just cold, drought. Without rain, no hay. Without hay, no livestock. Without livestock, no life. And there's more. Recent research has added 2 more pieces to the Norse puzzle. Persistent drought, which would have decimated hay production, and a rise in sea level of up to 3 meters, which would have flooded dozens of square kilometers, including much of the productive farmland beside the fjords. The sea swallowing the best land. The sky denying them water. The colony was running out of ground beneath its feet. But wait. Because there's one more blow, and it's economic. Remember, these men lived off ivory, and the ivory stopped selling. Despite a significant drop in value, evidence from the skulls suggests that walrus exploitation may even have increased during the 13th and 14th centuries, said the researcher Barrett. In other words, they hunted more to earn less. The findings suggest that Norse hunters were forced to push ever farther into the Arctic Circle for ever poorer ivory harvests. This would have worsened the decline of walrus populations and therefore of those who depended on them. And then the market collapsed entirely. There's little evidence of walrus ivory imports to continental Europe after the year 1400. Their only export product became unsellable. The ships from Europe stopped coming, and they were alone. Put all the pieces together, the advancing cold, the drought killing the hay, the rising sea, the ivory now worthless, the ships that no longer arrive. Each blow on its own, perhaps survivable, all of them together on an island at the edge of the ice with 2,000 people. Lethal. And even so, with all of this on the table, we still can't answer the question from the beginning, because 2 possibilities remain, and both are chilling. Archaeologists propose 2 main hypotheses for the colonists' disappearance. Either the entire population perished in Greenland, or the Norse returned to continental Europe. And there's a clue, small but unsettling, that tips the balance. This second hypothesis seems somewhat more likely because very few valuables were left behind in Greenland, such as jewelry, cups, or candlesticks. If the colonists had returned to Europe, they probably would have taken them. In other words, maybe they packed their bags, loaded their treasures onto the last ships, and left in silence, without anyone in Europe recording it. A civilization that flickers out and slips through the back door. Or maybe not. Maybe those who left were only the first, and a handful stayed until the end, clinging to the land, watching each winter take someone more, until one single person remained with no one left to bury them. The last written record of the Eastern settlement is a wedding at Valsey in 1408. A wedding, people celebrating, promising each other a future, in what was probably the last documented act of all Norse Greenland. After that wedding, silence. And that silence lasts to this day. Although researchers have gathered numerous clues about their disappearance, rising seas, drought, cooling climate, disease, environmental degradation, conflict with the Inuit, and economic disruption, no one yet knows exactly what happened. Hundreds of people, 500 years of history, untouched houses, beds made, livestock loose among the ruins, and not a single body to tell us how it ended.